Hello, resellers! Welcome to episode number 130 of eBay the Right Way. Today's date is September 13th, 2023, and we will be hearing from Sam in Michigan. A couple of announcements. Just a reminder that as the weather gets cooler and more garage and yard sales will be happening, you want to make sure you get your BOLO on. All editions of my BOLO books are for sale in my eBay store. A couple of shout outs to sellers who emailed me about their finds. Stephanie wrote, "Hey Suzanne, I just love your BOLO books. I have all three. I wanted to let you know I found the item on page 107 of the 2023 book at a garage sale for $2 and have it up for sale for $150. In the book, you mentioned there are no markings on it, so unless you know the brand or saw it in the book, you wouldn't know it was valuable." So yay to Stephanie on that one. The item is a funky shaped ceramic item, a popular name brand item that everybody knows today, but this item was not mass produced because it was one of the early items. Jim sent me this message. "Thanks so much for putting together the BOLO books. I have been studying like a madman so I would be able to recognize things when I am out looking for stuff to sell. I love the big photos. I am a visual person and seeing the pictures helps me remember. I found two of the items on page 53 of the 2023 book at an estate sale, brand new, unopened. Apparently the guy was all about skincare and the bathroom was full of tons of brand new unopened items. I bought them for $2 each, so a $4 investment, and sold them quickly as a set for over $100. I don't use Facebook, so I wanted to tell you directly. Keep those books coming. The books have paid for themselves many times over." So congratulations to Jim. The item was a men's lotion discontinued not too long ago. And as you know, supply and demand, the less there is of something, the more it's going to be worth. I love hearing these stories. Knowledge really is power in this business. I designed these books to be like a set of encyclopedias for eBay sellers, something you can refer to for years, and the information stands true over time. And yes, all the items in the books are different. There are no repeats. The link to my eBay store is below, so you can check out the BOLO books, and then you can be armed and dangerous when you go out treasure hunting. All right, now on to the conversation with Sam.
Hello, listeners. Welcome back. I have Sam with me today. And Sam, where are you located?
I am in Shelbyville, Michigan.
Okay. Another, what do you call yourselves? Michiganites?
Michiganders.
Michiganders. Okay, yes. Good. Lots of you resellers up there. So what is that near?
It is right in between Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo.
Oh, my. And Kalamazoo is a real place.
It is. It is.
My sister was babysitting one time, my little sister, and the husband worked for Carnation. And so he would travel all over and he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to Kalamazoo next week." And she thought that was a made up name because it was funny. It's like, she's like, "That was a real place. I didn't even know it."
Yeah, I was born there, grew up there. And
okay, good. So you're living proof that it does exist. All right. Good. Okay. And what do you do in your regular life when you're not eBaying?
So I work for a retail company. I do what's called asset protection. So I deal with safety and security. I take care of situations in stores when employees are doing things they shouldn't do,
Mm-hmm.
stealing or, do just stuff they shouldn't do. I cover about 91 locations
Mm-hmm.
across Michigan. So I stay pretty busy with that. And then we bought some acreage a couple years ago. And so kind of living the homestead dream here.
Oh, really? Very
Yes.
interesting. Good
Yes.
for
So,
you.
yeah. So, and
Okay.
got my husband and my son that live here. So, and then my daughter, she's 23, and so she's moved on and is doing her own thing.
Okay. Good. So back to your job, is that loss prevention?
Yes.
Okay. So my ex-husband, we were married 15 years. That's what he did.
Okay.
And yeah, so I know all about, well, I know what I was told, and it's kind of stressful. You have to go with
Yeah.
people that you kind of got to slap their hands, or maybe they lose their job. But that is a huge problem, shrink in any business, that employee theft is worse than customer theft.
Yeah. And shrink has really increased in stores and retail environment since COVID. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so it's been interesting. That's for sure. I stay busy.
Well, yeah, job security, because that's always going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And how old is your son?
My son is 15.
Okay. So just about to be driving.
Yes, he got his permit recently, so
Good.
he's working towards that driver's license for next year.
Okay. All right. So even more reasons to sell on eBay, because you're going to have insurance and gas and maybe a vehicle and
Yes.
yeah. Okay. Well, what brought you to eBay and when did you start?
So I haven't been doing it very long. I actually started in November of last year.
Okay.
So I mentioned that we bought some property,
Mm-hmm.
and I have my whole life I've lived in the city, or at least pretty close to it. So country living was kind of was different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just being out here made me want to really live that country life. And so at one point in November, I decided I wanted to get chickens the next spring.
Uh-huh.
Never had chickens. I actually was, my sister-in-laws have chickens and was petrified of even holding them. But I wanted my own eggs. So, looking at prices, chicken coops are pretty expensive.
Uh-huh.
And so I thought, okay, how am I gonna, how am I gonna get the money to add this expense in, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I looked around. I was like, I got a lot of essential oils sitting around, and I was kind of involved in an MLM a couple years back, and
Okay.
gained quite a few bottles of essential oils. And so I thought,
Okay.
well, I'll look around on eBay and see if they sell them on there or what that looks like. And they do. And so I was like, okay. So over the course of a couple weeks, I listed every bottle that I didn't want anymore, which was a little over 100 bottles.
So were
And
they empty or did they still have product in them?
so some of them were full and sealed, and some of them are like 90% full or 70% full, which I notated obviously in the
Right.
listing. And it's funny. People buy those open bottles. I would never buy that open
Well, I
bottle.
mean, you're not ingesting it.
Well, some of them they do though.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
because some of these essential oils, you're able to do that. But nonetheless, I was surprised that I saw them listed. So I figured, well, I'll list mine too. And they sold very well. And within 2 months, I had made almost $900. And I had enough to get my chicken coop. So
Good for you.
yeah, so that's kind of how it started, and it was fun. And I just really enjoyed it. And I thought, well, what else can I sell around here? Just like everyone else, what
Right.
else do I got around the house that I can sell off on eBay? So, I dug around and started decluttering. My husband had to prevent me from, grabbing some of his stuff that he didn't want. you know, my son,
Yep.
my son, same thing. He's like, stay out of my toys. Stay away. And then I started going to thrift stores and just checking out what they had, and the rest is history. So,
Good for you. Well, I know you can also sell the empty bottles.
yeah, yep.
Good for you. Okay. So you graduated from essential oils and well, let me backtrack and just comment on the chicken thing. Um, that must have been beyond the time that eggs got so expensive.
Yeah, it was before the egg crisis of
Okay.
2023.
Okay.
Um, I just, over the last couple of years, I've also been trying to eat healthier and
Right.
eat food that I know what's in it and what
Right.
it's made of.
Exactly.
And so it just kind of it became the natural next step,
Mhm.
was to have my own eggs. I'd been getting them from my sister-in-laws, and they are delicious. Farm fresh eggs are so much better than store-bought.
Yes.
The yolks are oranger because the beta carotene, and it's just you can't compete with it.
Yes. Well, I think I mentioned along the way that my family lived on a farm. It was my ex-husband's property, 300 acres in Tennessee, and that was our adventure during that time of life. So, and we had chickens, and yeah, they just the eggs just taste so much better, and a lot of people don't realize all the nuances in the terminology of eggs. So there's just regular eggs, there's cage free, but that can mean there's 100,000 chickens in one building and they're all stepping on each other and there's dead ones and it's not sanitary.
No.
Cage free doesn't really mean anything. Pasture raised is what you want. That's like the gold standard of eggs because they're out in the sun and they're eating what they would naturally eat, and it makes the eggs healthier, and they are that deep orange color because there's more nutrients. And I got on that a few years ago when I did my health journey to reverse type 2 diabetes. I have a whole video on that if anybody wants to know, but the doctors were making me sick. So that's one of my go-to things. I eat pretty much every day, pasture raised eggs, just because of the omega-3 and they're delicious. But when we lived on the farm, sometimes of year you have way too many eggs. And if you're in farm country, like you can't give them away because everybody has too many. So, I was making pound cakes because that takes like 8 eggs. And, we had deviled eggs and omelets and egg salad, like everything you can make with eggs.
Yeah, we kind of have that situation right now. We've got about 7 dozen in the fridge, and there's a whole basket on the counter. And I'm going to teach myself how to water glass eggs.
Who's
I'm not
that?
sure if you've heard of that. So
No.
it's where and again, I haven't done it yet. But you get a jar, glass jar, a big one, nice size one, like a gallon size, or one of those big pickle jars from like Costco or something.
Mm-hmm.
And you take the cleanest eggs. You don't want them to be washed. You take the cleanest eggs, you put them in the glass jar, and then you're supposed to add some sort of a lime. It's a safe, for consumption lime, a couple other things, and water. And it preserves, and close the jar, and it's supposed to preserve the eggs for up to a year. So
Really?
that way, when like winter comes and the chickens aren't producing as many eggs, you've got your eggs. And I follow some homesteaders on Instagram that do it, and the eggs come out a little runnier. The yolk doesn't always stay intact, but otherwise they're just eggs. So that's next up on my learning journey with homesteading is water glassing eggs.
Well, I know you can crack them open and put them in ice cube trays and freeze them and then take them out for cooking. I don't think they're good for like scrambled eggs, but can at least use them and preserve them some way. And you're so fortunate to have the internet. When I was out in the boonies, we barely had internet. We would open our email at night before we went to bed and it would download overnight. It was so slow. And there wasn't all this social media and all these people sharing their tips. So, it's a wonderful time to have that homesteading experience because there's other people doing it, sharing how to do it. And you don't feel like such an idiot from the city. Like, I didn't know that. I didn't know you should never stick your hand in a hen's nest without looking. I did that one time. And there's this huge, I was like, that feels weird. And it was this huge black snake all coiled up in there. And you should never put your foot in a shoe that's been outside. I did that once and there was a frog in it. Oh, freaked me out. So, yes. I was like, what's her name? Zsa Zsa Gabor on Green Acres. The city girl goes to the country and just can't figure it out. So anyway, I commend you on that. So as always in our podcast, we get off track, but we're human, so we're going to do that. So let's get back to your eBay business. And you worked through your essential oils, and then what did you get into?
We'll be back after a quick break.
A yoga instructor, a business coach, and a pet insurance rep walk into a bar. Now, I'm going to spare you the punchline to that, but all three of them have something in common. They've all sold millions of dollars in services to the U.S. government. The U.S. government buys everything you can think of. I'm Ricky Howard, former procurement officer and host of the DoD Contract Academy podcast. Head on over to the DoD Contract Academy podcast to learn how you could sell products and services to the U.S. government.
So I, again, really new to reselling. I made a mistake that a lot of people make. I just picked up things that looked pretty and that I thought, oh, these are cool. And turned out, like Avon plates. Those Avon does not sell.
Really.
So like I picked some of those up for like super cheap at a thrift store, and they're still sitting in the basement for the most part. And then I started again, I listen to your podcast and I'm on your Facebook page. So it kind of helped me, that information helped me kind of narrow down more on what I was looking at.
Okay.
So that helped. But I definitely have quite a few items still downstairs that I picked up in the beginning, mostly collectibles, glassware, stuff like that I thought, oh yeah, this is pretty, it'll sell. And, not so much. Everything sells eventually, as you say. I'm still waiting for eventually to come on some of those items.
Yeah. And it may not sell for what you first thought.
Right.
So it's, it's just a learning experience, but I think everybody gravitates towards what they like, what they think is beautiful, what is meaningful to them. And even now there's things that's just like, oh yeah, I know I can make a lot of money on that. I just don't want to work with that product. It just doesn't get me excited. And I keep putting it aside and doing other things instead.
Yeah. And I started, so I like collectibles, I like the little figurines and stuff, but I really like toys. And so I have started looking more towards vintage toys. Cabbage Patch dolls is what I started looking at first.
Okay.
And I did have a nice sale with one. Most of them aren't worth a whole lot. Most of them are worth $20-$30. I mean, if you get them for $5, you're still making a profit. But I found one that was a first year, and I took a note on it. That was a first year, and that was an item I decided to put on auction.
Okay.
Because I wanted to see, and it sold for $158.
Nice.
So yeah, so the other Cabbage Patches I've had have sold mostly for like 20 to 30. I had one that sold for 40 something, but so yeah, so I think the auction is very helpful for those things that you're just not sure about,
Mhm.
because you just never know what someone
And
else.
what did you start your auction at?
I think I started it at 20.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
And
and
how
again,
much did you pay for it?
did I pay for it?
How much did you pay for it when you
Oh,
bought it?
$5.
Okay, so even if you got one bid, you made some money.
Right. Right.
Okay, good.
So,
I don't think anybody's talked about Cabbage Patch dolls, or maybe they have. This is over 125 episodes now, so I don't
it's from my
remember
youth.
everything, but
Yeah.
that's not one I hear very often. So it was signed.
It was signed. Yeah, most of the dolls are signed on the back side, and the back side has the date as well. And then there's on the back of the head, there's a head mold number. And so there's like a couple different sites you can go to that kind of helps you decipher. And the dolls are made in different factories, and certain factories are worth more than other factories.
Right.
It's interesting. It's very interesting. And, again, they remind me of my youth. I had a Cabbage Patch doll when I was a kid. And when I saw one in Goodwill, I was like, oh, that's cute. Somebody's going to want that.
Yeah, that takes you back. Well,
Yeah.
and being from Georgia, I know that they originated from Cleveland, Georgia, the Cabbage Patch Hospital, where you would go, and it's a doll hospital. You go and get your doll there. Those came out when I was a teenager, I think. My little sister might have had one, but that was quite the rage in Atlanta. Oh, we're driving up to Cleveland because it was kind of in the mountains.
Yeah.
And we're going to the Cabbage Patch Hospital, and these little girls would come back with their dolls, and it was just I thought it was kind of stupid. It's like, well, they don't do anything, because that was during the time of Baby Tender Love, Baby Alive, all the dolls that did things, which my little sister had those. And at that time, I was babysitting and taking care of real children. And I was like, why in the world would you want a doll that poops? I mean, why would you want to clean that up?
Right.
I was like, wait till you get to the real thing. This won't be so exciting.
Exactly. This is not even anything to prepare you for what's coming.
Right. Yeah. But they had all the little packets of food you'd mix with water and feed to your baby. And then some of them cried, and some, or made noises or whatever. And so, yeah, I was a little bit too old for that, but definitely remember, I want to say that was in the early to mid 80s.
Yep.
Those came out. So
yeah, most of them are from like between 82 and 87, and they've got more that they've continued to make, but they're not as classic as those first ones.
Do you mind me asking what year you were born?
1978.
Okay. All right. So yeah, you were a little girl during all that. So perfect. Yep. Okay. That's a great sale. What else have you gotten into?
So I don't know how I ended up getting into it. Bibles. I started looking at Bibles, and I think maybe I saw someone post one, and I picked up. So some of the Christian, the religious thrift stores in town have Bibles for free. And so I started taking a glance at those, and on a couple occasions I found some that were leather bound. And so I thought, well, I'll just pick those up and see. And I don't know anything about Bibles, but I'll sell anything, really. And so I picked them up, and the first one that I picked up turned out there wasn't a whole lot of them listed. It was, what kind was it? It was a Kirkbride, a leather Bible. And it was from 1957, and it had colored maps in it. And it had special narratives on the side. And so I thought it looked very special. I found a YouTube video on it even of someone who really liked it and was explaining it. So I listed it for about 120 because I didn't see any. And I ended up taking a best offer for 110. And so I was like, pure profit.
For a free item.
Yeah. So, and then I sold another one about 2 weeks ago. I think I posted it on the Monday chain.
Okay.
I tried it on auction. I don't think I'll do the Bibles on auction again though, because it is a specific, person really that's looking for them. I still got $61 for it. Again, another free Bible. It was also leather bound and had some colored maps in it. It was from the 50s. But I think I'll keep those at fixed price going forward. And it turned out it was the same guy that purchased the first one.
Really?
The second one. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think there were only 3 bids on it. But yeah, it was the same guy.
Did those Bibles have writing in them?
No, they did not. But I did sell one. So I've sold, I think, 4 Bibles total. The other 2 went for much less, $20, $30. And those had writing in them and a couple of highlights. And I think if you're just clear about that in the description, I think for some people it adds something extra because they're able to see where someone else's focus was when reviewing it. So I think if you just, transparent and put it in the description, if that's what they're looking for.
Okay, well, I haven't come across a place to get them free here where I'm living now in South Carolina. And I kind of just stand there and can't make a decision because I do look for the leather bound ones. But what I mostly see in the thrift stores here are like the Gideon Bibles. I don't know if those are worth anything. They're usually hardbound and not leather, or it might be an older one, but it's not in good condition. Pages are falling out and it's written all inside. And maybe I need to find a Bible specialist. I never say expert because I don't really believe in experts because nobody knows everything, but specialist, someone who's sold a lot and, figure out what's good and what's not good. Cause again, I'm just overwhelmed with books. I don't have the patience to look through them, I guess, but I know I have sold a couple in my eBay lifetime, but I have no criteria for choosing what to sell. So I'm with you on that. Like you're getting them free, so it doesn't matter if they're not worth anything. You just redonate them, I guess. But
yeah,
I know the leather bound is an important quality.
Yeah, and I've been trying to learn more about books a little bit. I've been asking a lot of different questions on the Facebook page, actually.
Oh, good. Okay.
And stirring some conversation, and I think a couple of us are learning from some of the
many
questions.
People.
So
yeah, there's so many in that group that never comment; they just read. Because as the administrator, I can see if I pull up, click on their name, it'll say how often they posted or answered or whatever. And there's a lot of people that just come there to learn. So you are not alone. Okay. So you sold some Bibles. And what else is on your list?
So I went to, it was called an estate sale, but I think it was just it was kind of like a warehouse. It was in an old slaughterhouse. It was actually pretty cool. But they had a ton of Fiesta ware stuff. And I mean, it's pretty saturated. There's a lot of it on eBay. However, I found a clock. It was like a 10 or 11 inch clock, wall clock. It was circle. It had a dancing lady on it and it was yellow. And it was $15. And I looked it up and I had some good comps on it. And so I ended up getting it and I sold that for $84. So I was pretty happy with that. If they would have had more clocks, I would have bought them all. So that was a good sale for me. What else do I have here? I still have essential oils that I'm still working through.
Mhm.
And that's still my highest seller right now. Um, what else do I got? I found when I first started thrift shopping, I've always been a thrift shopper, but when I started doing it with purpose, I found a new in-box Black& Decker cordless space maker can opener.
Yes.
Yes.
Those are highly sought after.
Yes. Sold that for around $64.
Mhm.
So my husband was in shock. I think that was the sale that made him interested in it too.
Mhm.
Sometimes he'll go to thrift stores and look around and try to pick things out.
Now that's an electronic I would sell.
Yeah.
I do look at the electronics because you never know. You might see an old Walkman. You might see a Bose radio. All those higher dollar things or vintage things, and those can openers are something I look for too. And there are some crock pots that can sell for a lot, but that is kind of a beast to ship because
Yeah.
the inside is ceramic usually, and so that's going to be breakable. But yeah, I've been looking for that under the cabinet can opener.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was a good find. It was a good find. Um, I mostly do find everything at thrift shops. I am starting to go to estate sales though. That's new on my to-do list because the thrift shops are just expensive. They're not as cheap as they once were, and everything's marked at like $4.99. It's like,
Mhm.
you know, um,
Now, how did you enjoy the estate sale podcast? Did you learn a lot from that?
I did. I really liked it.
Good.
I learned a ton. In fact, they mentioned a website or an app called estate.net, and
Right.
I downloaded that right away and have already been to 2 estate sales as a result. I didn't find much because I went in the last day and it just wasn't much of what I wanted
Right.
left. But it's pretty. I mean that website is great, and it has an app to where you can look through all the pictures, get a feel for what's at the sale if you even want to bother with it. But that podcast was fabulous. It
Oh,
was
good.
fabulous.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad because I'm kind of in that situation too, transitioning from thrift stores to estate sales. And I'll admit, when something's new, it's intimidating for everybody, even if you think, oh, Suzanne's not intimidated. Yeah, I am. If it's the unknown, it's like you just throw yourself out there and start learning. Throw yourself to the wolves. But
Right.
I found that estatesales.net is great. And do you subscribe for the updates?
I just started to.
Okay, so you'll
Just
get
started.
notified. And you can also subscribe to the individual companies. You
Oh,
may have to, if some of their websites aren't great, but if you're at their sale, you can say, hey, do you have a mailing list? Because sometimes the sales don't appear on estatesales.net because they have to pay to put them there.
mm,
And I don't know how much it is. I don't know if it's a subscription that's like an annual thing, or I have no idea how that works, but some of them don't put their information on there. So if you subscribe directly to them and get on their newsletter list, you can get more information that way.
that's a good tip. That's a good tip.
Okay. So wait, what were we talking about?
I don't know.
Estate sales, and then something that you sold, the under cabinet can opener.
Yeah, the can opener. I don't know where we were going with it.
Okay, well, let's just pick up with whatever. What's on your list?
So I don't do auctions often, but like I said, I do it when it's something that I'm not real familiar with and I can't find a lot on it.
Mhm.
I did find a Murano perfume bottle at a Goodwill. I did a little research. It was from the 40s. and it was gorgeous. It was gold flecked, and but I couldn't find a ton on it, and so I put that on auction, and it ended up selling for $76. So, and it was just, it was only maybe 5 inches tall. It was, but it was beautiful. So I do keep my eye out for Murano things, but it can be hard to identify just because there's so many lookalikes.
Okay. Yeah. Murano. Now, was it marked Murano, or did you just know that's what it was?
I just knew what it was from my research.
Okay.
So it was not marked.
That's what overwhelms me about glassware is a lot of it's not marked. You just have to know, like Carnival glass has a certain look. Hobnail has a certain look. Depression glass, I'm not sure about that. And then there's, of course, the Vaseline glass that glows in the dark and has uranium in it and all of that. But it just seems like a very overwhelming category because so much of it's not marked. And my fear is, well, I don't want to say fear. My concern is I identify it, and there's lots of groups on Facebook and lots of ways you can research it. But if I put that in my listing and then, someone who knows way more than me buys it, they can question it. I don't know how that works. Like, this is not Murano glass. Well, I don't even know how much of it is marked.
Right.
I just go by, like, if it doesn't have a hallmark on it, it doesn't have the name on it, I revert back to, how are you going to prove that's what it is if the buyer questions it because there's no markings?
Yep. So, I had someone reach out to me recently. I had a vase posted, and I don't remember what I had on it, but it was, again, based off research. It looked like it was a certain type of brand, and but I had someone reach out to me and say, hey, I was just getting ready to post mine that looks just like this, and this isn't what you said it was.
Oh,
I was like, oh, how do you know that? And so she upskilled me. And it was great. It was just like hey, just a watch out, and I updated the listing and just changed it to unmarked, and
perfect. Okay.
left it at that. So I think it's really cool when people feel comfortable enough to reach out.
Absolutely. That happens. And sometimes you just do the best you can and post it, and somebody will reach out and say, hey, you've really underpriced this, and they'll help you. Not everybody is out to criticize you and try to get your listing pulled. Some competitors might do that, especially in the designer handbag world. They're very territorial. And I actually had this conversation this morning. Somebody didn't want to pay for authentication. And it's like, that's your safety net.
Right.
Yeah, you can do the research, but when you have it authenticated, you have that certificate to put in your listing. It can't be questioned. And I understand you don't want to spend the $20 to have something authenticated, but if it's not authentic and you get caught by either another seller or eBay and you get kicked off, your account's worth way more than $20. So that's kind of where I go back to if something's not marked. It's just, how are you going to prove it?
Right.
So sorry, I hijacked your thought there.
You're good.
But yeah, just there are a lot of helpful people on eBay. Absolutely. And I've reached out too, and somebody's got the decimal point in the wrong place. I'm shopping for something. And I'm like, hey, did you realize that you have this up for $2,400 instead of $54? And they're like, oh, thank you so much. I was listing this. My kids were climbing all over me or whatever it was. And, everybody makes mistakes. So, not everyone is evil. There are a lot of helpful people.
Yeah, no, I agree. Another thing that I found at a thrift shop, and at first I thought it was, again, one of those things that I just shouldn't have picked up. I thought it was cool, whatever. They were pewter figurines, and they were like little old wagons and figurines of wagons and people, and they were very tiny, half an inch big. I bought 2 of the sets. There was like 7 in each one. And what I found interesting about it turned out to be what the buyer found interesting about it was where it was from. So there was a price tag on each one, an old one from Steckety's, which is a store that no longer exists. And I just thought it was cool because I remember there being a Steckety's around when I was younger. And so I started, when I got ready to list it, I noticed they weren't worth a whole lot. I mean, maybe $12. I picked them up for $5. I mean,
Mhm.
I was like, okay, well, I got them, so I'm still gonna list it. And I had a gentleman reach out to me on it and asked, are these the only two that you have? And I said, yes. And I noticed in his profile, because I'm nosy, I, look around. It's my job in real life to be nosy. So I look around and I noticed his last name was Steckety. And so I asked, I said, hey, just out of curiosity, I noticed your last name. Are you related in some way to the store? And apparently his great grandfather had been the one that opened the store. And so that's why he was purchasing the figurines, because it had the Steckity sticker on it. It had
Okay.
nothing to do with the figurines. It had to do with the sticker. Um, so yeah, so I thought that was interesting. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Sometimes you get a family historian and they're just trying to preserve anything. We've heard this story many times on this podcast, like this item, a picture of somebody, a high school yearbook, things like that. And it was a relative of, or an artist. It was a relative of the artist. And so it's like, if it's old, just put it on eBay, see what happens.
Yeah.
And even though comps may not be really high, um, it may be somebody like that that's just the family historian trying to preserve everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said every time he sees he's got it programmed. So every time Steckity pops up in a search, and I had put it in my listing because I thought it was interesting. And
Mhm.
so it popped up in his search and he was on it.
So
So,
is that a Michigan store?
I think it is. I'm not positive, but I do believe it is.
Was it national or was it just a local store?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Okay, well,
Yeah. But I think that's why it's, when you are looking at stuff in the stores or an estate sale, you know, don't don't discount the sticker that is on it, because if it's an old sticker and that sticker is from a store that no longer exists, that might be the selling point and it might be worth putting in the listing.
right. Well, I mentioned some action figures I found at a church sale. They're actually the MASH characters,
hmm,
and they were new in the cardboard with the plastic casing over the person. And then they had Kmart price tags on them for $1.79, something like that. And they were made in 1982. And the action figure sellers say, leave all that on there because that shows how old it is. I don't know, does Kmart even exist anymore?
I think there's maybe a couple locations.
Maybe a handful, but I
Yeah.
remember, gosh, in the late 90s, they were closing them down all around Atlanta. They went out of business there. So that's just something you don't hear about anymore. Kmart.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It used to be the place to go.
absolutely, that blue light special.
Yeah. Layaway.
Yeah, that layaway. That's right.
Mom used to
Yeah.
always get gifts on layaway every Christmas. That
Or
was
it
her
was the
thing.
butt of jokes at schools like, oh, she's wearing Kmart jeans. That was during the days of, Jordache and um, Calvin Klein,
Yeah.
Brooke Shields modeling those Calvin Kleins. And anyway, gosh, I always revert back to high school, don't I?
I think we all do. We
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, you don't know how good you have it in high school. You don't have bills to pay. Your time is pretty much your own. You're just out there with your friends. Um, and you just don't know how good you had it till you move on in life.
Right.
So,
Right.
okay, well, what else is on your list?
What else I got here? Oh, I had a friend. Well, I still have a friend. She had some stuff. She was downsizing, and so she was, purging some things, and asked me if I'd be interested in coming to take a look. And she said she knew I was looking at vintage type items, and so she had some dolls and some toys and things like that. So I went over there and picked up a couple things. Well, more than a couple. It was like a box full of stuff, different Looney Tunes glasses from the 80s and the Muppets, drinking glasses from the 80s. And there was a Snoopy security blanket, like a lovey, that she had in there. It was plaid, and it was old, and it was 1958, and my husband loves Snoopy. So I didn't show him it before I listed it, just to make sure we didn't keep it. Um,
You didn't kidnap Snoopy and hold him hostage.
he would. He loves Snoopy. His grandmother loved Snoopy, and so he loves Snoopy. But I ended up selling it. I mean, I got this box of stuff. I think I paid her about $50. I mean, there was a lot of different things in it. Broken down, I probably paid maybe $2 each piece that was in there. $2. I sold the blanket for 73.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a very nice sale. I was pretty happy about that. And then what else I got? Oh, so I always look at those grab bags that they have at the thrift stores just to see if there's anything interesting or, and there was this bag of, they're called Lost Kitties. Didn't even know what they were. They just looked cute. And so they had big eyes, kind of like kawaii kind of type things. But they're fairly new. I think they started producing them in 2019. But it was like a gallon size bag of these little 1 inch tall cats. And they're all doing goofy things, playing with yarn or playing a guitar or something, It was $4.99. So I thought, well, you know what? I like to learn. So I grabbed it. And it wasn't, they're not big sales. So I've been still selling them. But I sell them for about $3.99 a piece because they're not worth a ton, but people do buy them. And that bag, I've sold almost $120 worth out of that bag. And I paid, $4 or $5 for it. So,
Okay, and say the name of what it is again so the listeners can look it up.
yeah, Lost Kitties.
Okay.
So I did recently add the kawaii tag in the keyword.
Okay.
Just to see if that helps pick up some traction on it. To be determined. Because it's got like the big eyes, small body, small rest of the features, big head, big eyes. And then they're all just doing goofy things. And I guess it was something that kids were into, a couple of years ago. There was different series, and
Okay.
so yeah, I never saw them before. I just thought they were cute, so I picked them up and did some research and was able to find out the names for each one. And so it took a long time to list.
It wasn't necessarily a vintage thing. It was just it's more modern, but not real well known.
Yeah, and I've sold probably a quarter of the ones that I have sold so far have been overseas.
Okay.
All over the place. So yeah, so I don't know if maybe it's popular or gaining popularity somewhere else. So yeah, I mean they're made in China, so nothing. There's nothing real spectacular about them other than they're just kind of cute. But it took a while to list, but it was the thing I listed as I went. It took a while to list them all, and it wasn't a priority. I just did a couple here, a couple there, and yeah, so not bad. I've already made my money back times a whole lot, so I think it was worthwhile.
Yeah, it just can be surprising sometimes because that type of item that maybe wasn't mass produced, maybe they made a few of them, supply and demand. just there's not a big supply. It's not like Build-A-Bear. Gosh, you see so much of that stuff everywhere, and some of it's worth money, but odds are most of them are not. I went down that road. I'm like, I'm going to figure out Build-A-Bear, and it was a little depressing because there's just so much of them, but not really any that are super high dollar. Not like that giant Lion King plush, the Simba. It was like 4 feet long. I'm going to find him one day. It's like $1,000.
Oh my goodness.
There's certain things like that, which is why I make my books. It's like, well, other people can be looking for this too, and they may not know.
Right.
So there's just certain, but most of the ones I look for, the plush, are the very little ones. Just because if it's vintage, it was a baby or a toddler's, favorite friend, and it's not made anymore. So, and they sink to the bottom, and I wish thrift stores would come up with a better way. A lot of them have these, I guess, cages, and you have to lean in, and it's like, I just want to get in there and go through them because I'm a short person and I can't reach all the stuff. So I go get like something long, like a long pair of grilling tongs out of the kitchen section. I use that to move everything around because I can't reach the bottom.
Nice. Yeah, I feel bad sometimes because, to your point, they're in little cages or deep ones, or they're wide and they go way back.
Right.
And so I'm constantly trying to move them out of my way because I love looking at plush too. I'm constantly trying to move them out of my way to get to it. And it's like I'm digging in sand almost, and just it keeps falling back on me. And
and I'll take the big ones off the top and just put them somewhere. Like sometimes it's on the floor, and the employee will come by and start putting them back. And I'm like, no, I put them there. I'm going to put them back. I want to see what's underneath. I'll buy it. I can't see what's underneath because y'all just keep stacking all these 4-foot long teddy bears from Six Flags on top of everything. And I'll dig in that. I don't go to the bins. I just don't like that experience, but
I went once.
I'll dig in the store.
Yeah.
Once.
I did. I found out that there was one in Grand Rapids, and it wasn't big. But I wanted to check it out, FOMO, fear of missing out. So I checked it out, and it just, I don't know, it smelled funny. And, it was just, I don't know, the thought of digging through it, and a lot of the stuff just looked kind of, trashed, and you just whipped in there, and I don't know. I picked up a couple interesting books, but that was about it. I mean, definitely cheap. It was like a quarter a book. So it was definitely inexpensive, but I don't think that's for me either.
Well, I do think there are better bin stores, Goodwill bins, than others. And I just think the one we have here in South Carolina in Greenville is just not one of the better ones.
Yeah, I don't think this one is either. So
I'm not criticizing people who like to shop that way, because I know you can get amazing deals and find all kinds of stuff there, because that's all the stuff that didn't sell in other stores.
Right.
That gets shipped there. So there's still things to be had, but I wish maybe someday in my travels, I'll find a better one and actually find some stuff, but I have tried.
I think there's another bins somewhere in Michigan. And, because I travel a lot with my job, because I cover a lot of locations, I travel along the entire west side of Michigan and the UP. And so when I'm done doing what I'm doing, I tend to stop into thrift shops and things like that along the way.
Good for you. Yeah, work it into your trip. Absolutely.
Yeah. So and I think there's another bins in mid-Michigan. So eventually I'll probably check it out. But I don't know if it's for me. I like being able to just, look, straight on, and up and down versus dig and get deep into something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we have been going about an hour, and you wanted to tell us about a podcast that you like.
Yes. So it's called The Casual Preppers. It's two guys, and they're hilarious. They just chit chat about different preparedness kind of things. And again, since moving out into the middle of nowhere, and I've kind of gone down some rabbit holes, and so I do a lot more canning and preserving of food, and just making sure that like if the power goes out, things like that, we're good. And so they
Wow.
talk about that kind of thing, but also like crazy like things as well, like nuclear disasters. And I find it interesting.
Mhm.
So that I listen to that quite often, and then I listen to yours every Wednesday.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah.
So,
So
speaking of canning, I saw this joke thing circulating on Facebook, and it was one of those memes, and it's like, "Oh, I'm so tired. I've spent all day canning soup." And it's a mason jar, and inside of it is a can of Campbell's soup. Like the whole can.
oh my gosh.
Like, yeah, that was pretty easy.
Yeah, it's a lot simpler than I've been doing.
Yeah, so you've been canning some?
Yeah, yeah. Again, it goes back to that, knowing what's in your food.
Mhm.
We've got two large gardens here. And so recently we've harvested hundreds of potatoes, and I've been preserving those, and I don't use pesticides or anything like that. So I know where it was grown. I know what was, put on it or not put on it. And I preserve it, and it lasts me for the whole year. And then I'm not spending the money at the
Good
store.
for you.
Yeah.
Do you make end of the garden soup?
Yes. Yes. I
When I
mean,
moved to the country, the lady next to me had been there her whole life, and she could bake anything, cook anything, canned all the time. It was just marvelous having her next door teaching me how to do things. So one day she goes, "Yeah, I got to make end of the garden soup," and I'm like, "What is that?" And she's just like, "Just everything that's left over." It's just,
yeah.
it could be anything. It's just all the leftover stuff. There's not enough to put up a quart of beans, or there's a few straggler tomatoes or whatever. And that stuck with me because
Yeah.
it was always good, but it was always different.
Right. I don't think any of my meals in general are ever the same, because I use what we have usually, okay, well, I just made up pasta for a get together over the weekend, and it was kind of like a end of season pasta. I had a couple peppers, and I had a couple tomatoes, and there were something else, onions, and I just roasted them and threw them in some pasta with some homemade dressing and called it a day.
You sound
So
like that Gordon Elliott. Are you old enough to remember that show called Door Knock Dinners?
no.
It was, I don't know if it was on a food channel or what. It's not Gordon Ramsay, it's Gordon Elliott. So listeners, you can look this up on YouTube. And it was kind of the beginning of reality TV. So I don't know if this was real, but they would film him going to knock on people's doors and just and make whatever he could with what they had.
Yeah.
It might be coconut and peanut butter, and like, I don't know, it's like might be hot dogs and something in a casserole. And it was just fascinating because he used what they had, and it was all these odd ingredients, like they hadn't been to the store in a while.
Yeah. Well, it helps you waste less.
Yeah.
You throw
Yeah.
away less, you use what you have. It's not always possible. I don't know, hot dogs and coconut would be weird, but I don't think I
Yeah,
could.
and then the people would eat it, and they were honest about, like, ew, this is disgusting, or that's not too bad.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, door knock dinners, look that up. So, okay, well, we have made it to the end here. Are you working your regular job today after this?
I am. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again for coming on and sharing all that. And as a new seller, you are doing a fantastic job. You already know that, but keep going.
Thank you.
Every day is an adventure on eBay, because you just never know what's going to sell, and you never know what you're going to find out there looking. So keep up the great work.
Well, thanks, and thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Bye.
Bye.
You just never know where the conversation will go on this podcast. Regarding the store Steccatees, it was a department store based in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It started in 1862 and soon grew to several stores throughout southwestern Michigan. After a purchase by the Dunlap's Company of Fort Worth, Texas in the early 1990s, the stores were gradually closed, with the last store closing in 2003. So if you're in that area or you have any items with those Steccatees price stickers, you might want to look those up and see if they are worth anything. Thanks again for joining us, Sam, and have fun with those chickens. Today's trivia question. Since we talked about eggs, the trivia question is, exactly why are pasture-raised eggs the superior choice? Here's a few seconds to think about it. I feel compelled to provide this information because the marketing of food products in general is designed to confuse consumers and trick us into buying products because we think they are healthier. That's all by design from the marketing companies. So let's talk about space per chicken. That's one of the big differences between pasture-raised and conventional raised chickens. So conventional chickens have half a square foot allocated to them. So you can have a giant building and have thousands of chickens crammed in there. They never see the sun. Conditions are filthy. Diseases spread quickly, and the whole situation is very unsanitary. Then you get cage-free as a keyword. That doesn't really mean anything. Those chickens get less than a square foot per chicken allocated in a building, and they do not get outdoor access either. Then you have free range. They get 2 square feet per chicken and get some outdoor access. Getting out in the sun is really important to be healthy. That's where the vitamin D comes from. Then you have the gold standard pasture raised. They're allocated 108 square feet per chicken and get as much outdoor access as they want. So that will be written on the carton. It will be on there somewhere. Pasture raised, the criteria is they have to have 108 square feet or more per chicken. Okay, why does this matter? Healthier hens means healthier eggs. Conventional eggs have about 70 milligrams of omega-3. Pasture-raised can have up to 5 times more than that. So yes, they are more expensive, but you get so much more nutrition from each egg. Vitamin E, pasture-raised have 3 times more, and they have 7 times more beta-carotene. So you have to think about where your food comes from because you really are what you eat. Healthier food sources means a healthier you. And this is all true. I am not joking. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Okay, that's a wrap for episode number 130. Julie is my guest next week, and she is an avid crafter. She sells craft supplies and has found some very cool, very profitable stuff, not only in the craft category, but in random other places. Thank you, listeners, for spending the last hour with us, and make it a profitable and productive week on eBay. Bye, everybody.